Welcome to Talent Buzz, where I talk about talent acquisition with fast-growing SaaS companies. My name is Samuli Salonen. I'm the CEO and co-founder of TalentBee, a talent acquisition agency for Nordic SaaS companies. And today I'm joined by Erika Ekstam, Head of People and Culture at OneLab, and we are talking about application tracking systems. How to pick the right one, when is the right timing for that one, how to utilize application tracking system, how application tracking systems could be better, how to get hiring managers involved, how AI is changing the game, and a lot of other things. And let's start today's episode with a little introduction from Erika to her background and the company OneLab.
My name is Erika, and I currently work as the Head of People and Culture at OneLab, and we work with digital and preventive healthcare for companies and their employees. So that's what we do. So I'm the sole HR person here, and it's been like that for my previous job as well, but I have a background within talent acquisition and then also taken on like broader roles. But I feel like I got into talent acquisition, a bit by chance, but I've been holding on to that part of my roles throughout my career, and I don't think that I would let it go either. It's really something that I'm passionate about, and if I think about what I do every day, like recruitment and like the whole thing around in talent acquisition, is really what I would summarize as like my highlights of the day.
That's nice to hear. And regarding what OneLab does, I went to your LinkedIn before this episode, and I read there a health platform for a sustainable future. But can you explain, because I've heard a lot of stories about what companies are doing, but if you think it more from the kind of problem perspective, like what is a kind of typical challenge that your customer is having when they are looking for a solution like yours? What is kind of the problem that you are solving?
I would say it's to identify the health issues that you might not see, because I feel like an HR person myself. Not everyone will click with me or find the confidence to talk to me if they feel like they're not feeling well, or you won't have the confidence to talk to your manager, or it might be something that is definitely not work related, so you don't talk about it. So what OneLab does is to identify those health risks and also offer like a third party, someone of our nurses to talk to the employees, because no matter like where in your life you feel unwell, if it's in your private life or at your work, it will affect the work and the employer at the end of the day. So I think that's what is the main value from OneLab, is to identify those health risks, and it's a lot of focus on the psychological health that is an issue in the society and therefore in the workplaces, but we also do the physical health checkups as well, identifying in your blood samples if there's something that you might need to change, or we have identified this does not happen often, but one of our first customers, actually, we identified leukemia. So sometimes there are those real stories that definitely you will bring with you. But so I think that is the main purpose of OneLab, to identify those health risks and offer an objective or third-party solution. Because if you have a healthy and engaged employees, that will profit the company, of course.
Yeah, of course, and very, I think, important topics. I feel like I've lately kind of discovered the importance of both mental well-being and then kind of physical well-being as well. I'm not sure if I'm getting older. I'm turning 33 this year, and I feel like I just had a personal trainer and then a psychological coach for me, because I felt like things are getting harder. So I think very important topics.
And this on well-being, just to chip in, there is mainly within our younger employees. It's a span throughout, so it's not always. It's good to think about when you're getting older, but like mental health, there's definitely an issue within the younger employees as well.
Yeah, of course. But hey, the kind of main topic today is a word called ATS, Application Tracking System. And I was just chatting today with my colleague. We just had our first head of sales starting in our company, and he used to be one of the top sales rep for Team Taylor. And he used to work there
Congratulations.
for 5.5 years, a long time. So I mentioned to him that, hey, we are having this episode today, and like, what are the topics that we should be talking about? And we ended up having actually very long discussion around the term application tracking system, because nowadays I feel like most of the recruitments isn't around applications or applicants, but rather actually around headhunting and finding those candidates rather than people only applying for a job. So very interesting topic. But maybe first would be super interesting to hear kind of regarding your company, your situation. When you started out there, did you already have application tracking system in place, or was it something that you implemented when you started, or what was the starting point when you joined the company?
There was actually an ATS in place, and I've been fortunate enough to work at companies where there has always been an ATS in place. Actually, even when I joined my previous job, where I was the first HR person to join, they had implemented an ATS, and I've been part of like changing ATSs as well, depending on the company size and the needs. So I think that it's a basic hygiene factor almost if you're going to hire, because you pretty quickly, I guess, realize why you need the ATS and why it's important. And they probably become like your master data when it comes to, or master system when it comes to handling applications, but not, as you say, not only applications, but also the whole like networking kind of thing. But I must also, this is going to be an interesting topic to talk about, because I feel like the ATS have a way to go when it comes to like the headhunting part and the sourcing part. So it's not just the application system, but I think that they could definitely improve when it comes to the sourcing features or functions and system. So yes, I've been working with ATS at all my workplaces so far.
Yeah. And you mentioned there that for most companies, kind of the ATS is a kind of hygiene factor. But what do you think? When is the right moment to kind of invest in ATS? Because I agree with you that it is something that companies should have when they are hiring a lot. But then, the question is, especially if you are, starting up, let's say you're a SaaS company, you maybe have 10 employees, and you, of course, are investing in growth, but then at the same time, you are all the time looking, where are you investing the money? And, if you're hiring only one person a year, does it make sense to have an ATS in place where you pay, let's say, 200, 300, 400 euros a month? Like, where do you think kind of lies the moment when it makes sense to do that first investment to your at the first ATS? What would you say? Is it about hiring volumes, or is it about something else?
I think it's about two things to consider if you're in this place to bring in an ATS and invest in it. It depends on how many hires you will do within a certain amount of time, and also how hard you think the position is going to be to fill. That's why I would consider bringing in an ATS. Like, will I have to hire a lot during the upcoming year? Will I handle a lot of applications? But it could also be the other way around, that this position is really hard to fill, and an ATS usually gets you integrated with job boards, and you can get more exposure for your job ads. I think you need to think about both these parts, and it's sometimes I feel like it's easy to be a bit short-sighted. So you think that, we're only gonna grow the team with a few positions, but then you have some rotation, and all of a sudden you're actually doing quite a lot of hires. And I think that anyone who would start up a recruitment process quickly realizes that it takes a lot of time. You have to keep track of many things at the same time, and that the job that comes with it requires more than you might think from the beginning. So it's hard to say like a number. It depends on how much you will grow, how fast, and how much you need. Maybe the other things that comes with the ATS, such as integration to job boards, assessments, when it comes to like logic and personality and abilities. So you have to think about like the whole picture. And usually I would say that you come down to, is probably easier, and I would be more efficient in my job if I have the ATS. So I think that's the job that you have to do, to think about what will be ahead of us, and not just the upcoming like 3 or 6 months, but maybe a little bit longer ahead.
Exactly. And I think, there's two sides on the ATS. There is, of course, the, company side, whether it's the, founder or recruiter or head of people or whoever is the one using the ATS. There is, the part that how they can do their work better, how they can, get better results, hire better people. But then there's also kind of the candidate side as well, what kind of experience we want to give the candidates. And I think I've lately seen, I think for bigger organizations, there is, I think everyone is, like almost everyone is having some kind of ATS in place, but there's a lot of those smaller startups where you still see when you go see some of their job ad, and then, in the end, there's send your CV and cover letter to recruitment at a company name.fi. So there is a lot of that one. And I think that's actually something that kind of makes applying for a job way harder, because at least, like, if I think about me, like I don't have any cover letter or CV in place. So if I would be looking at the job place, I would prefer kind of easy apply, like, hey, just click the button and here's the LinkedIn profile, and then then that's it. But as we talked around the kind of word application, if you see kind of how things are going with your company right now, would you say that majority of the roles that you have hired in the past, or you currently have they come through someone applying for the job, or you finding those candidates from somewhere?
That depends if you think about the way that the labor market has been within the last like maybe 2 or 3 years, because it has definitely switched and changed. So if you look back 3 or 4 years, it was more me headhunting candidates and wanting to bring them into my ATS to be able to keep the information and stay in touch with those people. And now I would say it's maybe 50-50 if I look at the previous hires that I've done. Some people have applied, some people I have found, and some come from recommendations, like internal referrals. So I would say that also depends, but I really think that you're making a great point. Like, even if you're not making many hires, the connection to if the position is going to be hard to fill, like what kind of impression do you want to give to your candidates? And especially now when more people are actually applying for jobs, is my impression that it's more important also for them to get a good experience and make it easy to apply. There also, just a fun side note, that I've actually seen like free ATS, at least one example of those popping up. So I think that because there have become a lot of ATS suppliers in the last years, but this one is a new take on it, to be able to offer a free solution, and then you probably pay a little bit more to get exposure on the job boards, but to get people to understand the value of an ATS. Or maybe you're a startup and you don't want to invest in the system, but if you get it for free, then you're more into it. So that's really interesting development, I think, for our news side of it.
It is. And I've been thinking, is it mainly because of the, market changing or more players coming in? Because I see it personally mainly as a kind of change in the go-to-market strategy of those companies. Because I think, product-led growth, free trials, I think that is something that is coming to, whatever the industry is within SaaS. Like, everyone wants to go to product-led growth. And I think it kind of makes sense to have those kind of products. And, if I think about all the tools that we are using, for example, in our talent acquisition agency, there is a lot of those tools where we started with a free trial, or we started with the completely free product, and then, as we got more and more users, or we wanted to have more and more features, then we started to pay on those ones. And I do see, let's take the application tracking system as an example, that, in the future, we most likely actually have a lot of those free tools where, for example, let's say it is free to get applications in. But then, once you want to do, let's say, some sourcing or sequencing over there, or let's say you want to see some data, you want to see data on which sources your candidates are coming from, then you need to pay. So I do see that happening a lot. And what you mentioned there, that you've seen some of application systems, kind of lacking features around, building talent pipelines and doing that outreach. I've seen the same. And what is interesting is, like, 3 years back, everyone was doing headhunting. And I feel like a lot of application tracking systems were going towards there, like, hey, how we can build our headhunting capabilities within our platform. Now the job market changed. And now when talking with recruiters, most of them are like, oh no, we are getting 300 applications. How I am going through these? So now I feel like application tracking systems are kind of once again taking a step back and figuring out how to have, AI capabilities on going through applications and not actually focusing on headhunting. So it's, I think, very, very interesting what's going on there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's good because it's relevant, and it is like that. For some roles, you will have a lot more applications coming in. But what I've seen also is that still there are a few positions that would always be hard to fill. And looking back, it was maybe hiring engineers. Maybe that's a little bit easier now. But for example, those companies that are doing well will definitely always be hiring for great people. For example, salespeople. Finding a great SaaS salesperson is pretty hard. So from my perspective, who is hiring for SaaS sales executives, I would appreciate if it was a bit more focused on the headhunting part. But also, I feel like, and I understand that the ATS are doing it, like they want to switch their perspective to what is the most primary customer need. But if you stay at a job for a while, you maybe you will not hire, but then you will go back to hiring. There will be cycles in this. Then you want to remember those candidates and be able to source. That is one question of mine that I would really like more ATSs to be able to have like a better search function, because one day you're gonna want to remember that candidate, and who was that, the one with those great skills, that engineer or that salesperson that wasn't ready then, but maybe it is now, or maybe that person has the experience now. So that is something that frustrates me, because just because you're not hiring now doesn't mean that you won't in the future. That's something that I'm really looking forward to have. And I know there are a few systems that have this functionality, but I haven't worked in a really good one actually. So that would be, I'm looking forward to that progression.
Yeah. And I think that's very, very, very important. And I'm a big believer of this kind of building talent pipelines of idea. So, always having great people basically in line to start with your company when you are in the moment that you can start hiring. Of course, it depends a lot what kind of company do you have. I think for a SaaS company, if you have multiple different roles, product owners or developers or product marketers or account executives or SDRs, there's a lot of different roles. But still, I think it makes sense to build that talent pipeline of those people that you are still hiring kind of frequently. And for example, how we are approaching that one, within our own company. For us, it's quite straightforward because we are basically hiring SaaS recruiters and employer branding people. Like, those are two target groups that we are hiring, and we're building our own employer branding all the time. And then we are chatting with new people, even though we know that we are not able to hire them right now. And then, every Monday I have a call with my co-founders, Sara and Siri, and I always ask them, who are the next two people that we will hire if we win new customers? And it kind of makes this fun kind of play out of it, that we are no longer, recruiting in a kind of ad hoc way, but rather we are super proactive on, when we are going to hire, who are we going to hire. And I think in the long run, it will make a big difference over there. But what do you think? Like, does that kind of approach work in a company like yours, where there is still like quite a multiple roles that you are hiring for?
Yeah, I think so, especially if you talk about hiring for potential rather than a specific skill set. And I mean, we're a company that we might see as a little bit of like the underdogs when it comes to a very traditional industry. So therefore, I think we don't really know what's going to be the next step. So we're probably not looking specifically for someone who has the industry experience, but rather have the right mindset and attitude and could add to our culture. So therefore, I definitely think it's hiring for potential. That's the mindset that we need. For example, hiring for a head of engineering, and we want someone to be able to contribute to our to the AI functions of OneLab's service, and that's something that we haven't done in the past before like AI really boomed. So that's one example where you would definitely hire someone with the potential and interest, and that's why I think it's important to be able to source within your ATS, not just for maybe the specific skill or so, but maybe like the attribute or and I think that's also where AI could help, because AI is actually really smart at that, to understand what you're looking for, and maybe that could also help us hire people more for potential rather than Java or whatever. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. And looking at like the company that I work for, the journey, like it's been around for 10 years, but we have also developed new functions, for example, during COVID, or we're getting into it, adding a new product now. I mean, no one will know exactly what we'll be doing in the future. So definitely potential is super important.
I want to get shortly back to the AI topic because there's a lot of stuff going on there. But before that one, what ATS are you currently using?
Oh, I'm a sucker for Team Taylor, so I was really pleased that was the ATS when I joined.
Okay, that's nice. And they've been building a lot of AI tools as well. We are also partner of Team Taylor, so and users as well. So being very interesting there. What's kind of your take on the AI and application tracking system? Do you think that kind of AI will take over, for example, the kind of decision making in hiring, or what is the people role? Like, do we need recruiters in the future?
Yeah, I think so. But my take on that is that AI will probably be great for both the talent acquisition people, but also for the candidates. The AI can help me maybe get more relevant information from the candidates in an earlier stage, and that would give more people the opportunity to actually showcase their experience. Or not everyone is great at like writing a resume. Maybe if I can have a chat with an AI, and that AI asking me relevant questions and then summarize it for me as the recruiter, that would make me as the recruiter focus on the relevant candidates, but also it gets done in a more objective and unbiased way. But I definitely think that you would always want the personal touch to it. I mean, you're still joining a company with colleagues and all of that. So I don't want the AI to make the decision for me, but maybe it can help me be more efficient and focus on the relevant candidates in a more unbiased way, because we talk a lot about like competency-based recruitment and unbiased recruitment, and I mean it's hard to step aside from all your biases. So I think it's actually going to be great for both parties. That's my thought of AI. Definitely.
Yeah, and I think the bias part is quite interesting, because at the same time I think like every human, we have a lot of biases, me and you included, and when kind of giving some part of the decision making or screening to AI, at the same time I kind of think like, okay, now there isn't that much bias, but then when I think about kind of the learning material based on AI, it's by us, it's by people, and everything that we've written to internet regarding recruitments or what kind of people are good, it's written by us. So therefore there is some bias there as well, but still I think it is a step closer in a way, because I hope that AI is better in looking at competencies and skills, whereas I notice this when I interview people to join our team. I look a lot about what kind of person they are, and I think it is important to look at that one. But then quite easily, I end up in a situation that I want to hire people that I like because they are like me, and it's very easy to like people like you. But then if someone is different, even though they would be very skilled in what they are doing, then it's kind of hard to go through that one. How do you see that one? Like, is it because you are professional in recruiting? I'm not yet, but like, how do you see? Is it easy to go around your bias, or like do you realize that, hey, okay, now I have a bias here?
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to be aware of my biases, and like you say, like the AI is also trained on the stuff that we have written on the internet. So of course, it's hard to completely trust it. That's why I want the AI to help us, but maybe not make the decision. So, for example, one thing that I wouldn't trust the AI is to completely do the screening process for me and reject candidates without me actually being able to take a glance at it. And so I think that you could use it maybe to be more efficient in and prompt it, hopefully, in the way that you want it to. And if you think about what your biases are, then you can also take them into account. Like, what do I want the AI to ask the candidate about? And is this like my biases, or can I try to make it more unbiased in some way? So I think it's hard to be completely unbiased, of course, but the most important thing is to talk about it and to learn about your biases. And I think that you should use AI and see it as a support, but you need to put in more steps in your process, obviously, of course, and test the candidate and see if it's a match from both ways in different steps of the process. So when I think about AI, maybe I think more, as of now at least, it could help me be more efficient in the first part of the recruitment process, I would say. That's where I would use it, at least. And I think that, considering like the labor market now, like we talked about, there are probably more applicants coming in than before. It's also a good way to introduce it, because I remember when it really boomed with like assessment, like logic assessments, and they would hesitate to use it on certain candidates, on certain roles, or headhunted candidates, etc. And now it's switched. Now it's, I would say, very common to use in the first steps of a process, and so on. Since the labor market is maybe more on the employer's side as of now, you could also start introducing those AI things a little bit earlier, because I think people are more prepared to work with that and have that as part of the process than maybe a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the dating app called Bumble? Have you heard of that one?
Yeah, I've heard about it, but I've been in a relationship for 8 years or so, so I don't think that Bumble was actually on the agenda for me. I'm more like the old school. I know how Tinder worked like 10 years ago.
I have the same. I've never used Bumble, but I have a point here. I just read. I think it was a news. It was Bumble founder who mentioned that they are building these AI capabilities right now, and kind of the idea over there is that both parties and two people, both of them are basically sending their own AI to have a discussion, and based on that one, they try to do better matches. And I think there's ton of those stories about how recruiting is like dating, and I do think like there will be a lot of that one in the future, where company has an AI, candidate has an AI, those AIs are basically given all the information from both sides, and then they are having a discussion, whether the discussion is an actual kind of call AI, or whether it's a written form. But with that one, you basically get a better match from both sides. And then I think eventually people will talk. At least I want to meet my future colleagues. I think they want to meet me, figure out if I want to really work with that people. But I think in the end, when talking about technologies, there's always human using the tech in the end, and no tech will solve your problems. And one thing I've heard from a lot of recruiters is that hiring managers aren't very good at using ATS or Team Tailor, or they're never over there. Have you succeeded over there? What are your best practices in getting hiring managers within the platform, and not sending all the messages to you over email or Slack?
Yes, that is definitely, I would say, sometimes a challenge. but and it depends. I guess it depends on the organization and like the people. If you're a SaaS company or if you're not, I expect people that I work with in a SaaS company to be pretty like high tech and to be able to take on a new platform or system. So I've done it in a few different like ways. But I would say if there's someone that's completely new and have never worked in an ATS, and if you have one or a few of these, I would probably like conduct a training. But I think it's more important to like do it, like sort of activate them in the system rather than like putting something in your manager playbook or so. So maybe conduct a training, but choosing an ATS that is intuitive, I would say, is definitely the most important part. Because you can have how many trainings you like, but if the ATS is hard to understand and hard to work with, then your manager is not going to use it. And I've tried a few of those ATSs. That wasn't even a pleasant experience for me as a recruiter. And then I did not blame the managers for not using the ATS, honestly. I would probably do a lot of things for them at a specific time. But I would say, so ATSs could definitely, like, they have to be intuitive, and maybe something like the ATS could also develop a little bit better to include the hiring managers, because I would like the ATS to be the main system where we do everything with the candidates. So emailing or maybe texting and so on. So I think that some improvement that I could see is to if you develop it more as an email tool, putting people on CC and BCC, etc., that could also include and get more people involved in the ATS. But otherwise, I would say definitely like conduct a training, but like when they ask you something, I send them links to the candidate profile in the ATS actually. So do you have this candidate's number? I send the link in the ATS just to get them into the system. So, and also sometimes not forget that as a recruiter, you work in the ATS all the time. Mm-hmm. Your hiring managers might not do that. Some are hired more than others. But, taking the time when you do your hiring check-ins during the week, make them go through the candidate pipeline in the ATS, involve that. So maybe you're doing them a disfavor if you put it on a silver platter. So it's their hiring actually, and they are accountable for it. They're also accountable for managing the system, and you're there to support them. So I would say show them all the tips and tricks, and I've gotten that feedback actually on OneLab when I show them some easy things to do in the system. And they're like, oh wow, I did not know this. And then of course no, because you're not working in this all the time, and maybe I read the newsletter that comes from Team Taylor about their product updates, but it's also my responsibility to train the hiring managers in these features, because it will make it easier for them as well. So there are great integrations and like I said, tips and tricks, and a lot of the ATSs have great support chats as well, so you don't have to support the hiring managers with every little question as well.
I think that's a great tip, getting those hiring manager within the platform. I think, one thing that I'm always thinking is what we can steal from sales and marketing to recruitment industry, because that is kind of where all my knowledge is coming from. And, one thing that I've used to done with my sales rep in the past is every Monday, basically you have a review of all of your sales cases, and I always ask them to open up their HubSpot and share the screen and go through the deals, and if there's some deal that isn't on the right stage, move it there, or if the close date isn't there, add it there, or if the amount of deal isn't there, add it there. And I think that kind of practice basically would work on weeklies with hiring managers, make them open it, make them use the platform, because as you mentioned, you are professional with that one, they're not. So I think it's very, very important to support them over there.
Definitely. And also I guess it varies how much support they will get and have, depending on the recruiters priorities as well. So definitely it will change maybe over time and so on, but all of us have a lot to do, so it would benefit from everyone if the hiring manager also you some of the easy things to do. But I would say maybe what's important is to be clear with who has responsibility for what also, so that you don't have like the miscommunication, so that you set clear expectations. So, okay, so I'm the one moving the candidates forward, or maybe you are the one rejecting them, etc.
Exactly. But hey, last question for today. We've talked a lot about, development of ATS systems, and I've seen, one trend going on regarding data and analytics. A lot of ATS are putting, a lot of effort there to have better data and analytics. If you could now pull, let's say, top 3 things from the ATS, like what would be your kind of favorite metrics regarding talent acquisition? If you can pull out 3 metrics from any ATS.
One thing that I really appreciated that most of the ATSs now have improved is the difference between time to hire and time to fill. I would say it's time to fill is definitely a key metric that you want to be able to measure, because you want to be able to be proactive in when you're hiring for similar roles, and to anticipate how much time you have to put in and how hard is it going to be to get the position filled. I would look more at that rather than time to hire. Time to hire is a great metric, but I wouldn't say it's as important as the time to fill, considering like the business needs and so on. And also because time to hire isn't always like accurate, things happen and then you are not up to date in the system. And so then I would also say one thing that I definitely look at when you're in these times of the world where a lot of companies are moving towards profitability, it's where do you put your money and what's the return on the investment. So I want to look at the sources of the candidates for as deep as I can. There's always going to be a glitch between, like, if you sponsor like promote a job ad, and then you want to see how many candidates comes from that campaign or so on. I mean, it's always going to be like a dark space there, because you cannot know for sure, but you definitely want to see, like, if I put this money on recruitment ads, I want to see that some kind of returns. I want to see where the candidates come from. And also maybe you realize that you don't need to promote job ads, because people find you either way. So those are the 2 things that comes to mind. I don't know, what would you say is a great third one to look at?
I think, for the third one, it's a good question whether this is a talent acquisition metric or more like talent management metric, but I would go somehow with retention of people and kind of combine that one, for example, with the source of the candidates. Because I think, mistake a lot of companies are doing is like there's a different department or person for talent acquisition, and then there's a different one for management of current people. And then, you might quite easily end up in a situation that you hire a lot of people, some of them are performing well, some of them aren't, and then you are just trying to figure out why is that, and then you are only like trying to look for differences on leadership or onboarding or stuff like that. But then, if you look at the whole funnel and you, for example, realize that, let's say on sales reps, like all the people that I hire through a referral are performing, but then all the ones that I hire through, let's say, LinkedIn paid advertising are not performing, then that would say for me that, hey, most likely I should utilize even more referrals in the future. So I think, combining the retention to talent acquisition metrics makes sense for me.
Yeah, I guess that also requires your ATS to support you with that, because otherwise you need great integration. So that's one thing that I also thought about earlier, that integrations that are going to be much more important also, because there are a few HR HRMs that transforming to the recruitment side and vice versa. But at the end of the day, I think that you're going to integrate more, and that makes it gives you other opportunities also to look at different metrics. So I think that metric is great, but I don't know if all the ATS support it as of now. So I think that integrations, that could also be a pro, or like a reason for having an ATS, is that you want to be able to integrate it with your other HR systems. But if you don't even have an ATS, I don't know, then you might not have other HR support systems. But yeah, it's interesting metric for sure. To be able to do more like spot on hiring, definitely.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you got a lot of good ideas about SaaS talent acquisition. If you enjoyed the episode, feel free to share it on your socials so others can hear it too. And if you have a topic in mind that you would like me to cover in this podcast, share it with me as well. I'm Samuli, CEO and co-founder in TalentBee, where we help fast-growing SaaS companies in their talent acquisition. Make sure to follow us, make sure to follow this podcast, and have an awesome week. Bye-bye.